Well, hey everyone, today we're looking at the Sony INZONE M10S. This is a 27-inch WOLED 1440p monitor, 480 Hertz, and it was developed in conjunction with the Fnatic Esports group. Features one of the most amazing stands I have ever seen. This thing rotates full 180 degrees, and it has a DCI-P3 of 98%, 10-bit color, 0.03 millisecond response time, 1300 nits of brightness, INZONE hub software which lets you control all aspects of this monitor through your PC, a headphone jack, 2 times USB-A, a USB-B, 2 HDMI 2.1s, DisplayPort 2.1, one of those, a USB-A for firmware updates, and it can use up to 120 watts of power. And so I think right off the bat, the most unique aspect of this display is the fact that it is so well designed. In my opinion, the best looking gaming monitor I've ever seen, because I'm not a huge bling RGB guy, and I actually really prefer this more matte black professional look. The fact that this thing spins 180 degrees, it's pretty crazy. This stand is very well designed. It looks like it's gonna fall over, but it is not. This thing is sturdy. In terms of just industrial design, is superbly well made, and I really love the branding that Sony is using. It's very, very subtle. The only branding you really get is the INZONE logo on the back and a tiny Sony logo on the other side. My unboxing experience with this display was like no other, because I found this for a steal. Best Buy had an open box, and when I showed it up to buy this open box monitor, there was literally no box. It was just wrapped in bubble wrap. That was why I wanted to take a chance with it. It was marked down to $4.99, so that is one thing to keep in mind. People are returning these for whatever reason. If you are interested in buying this, definitely check Best Buy in your local area. They probably have an open box version of this for like 500 bucks. In that case, it is definitely worth trying out, and you have 14 days to give it a go. You have a small joystick on the back for controlling all your settings through the OSD, and a power button, and that's it. The only other things you have are the ports on the bottom. You have full height, swivel, and tilt adjustment on this display. It has even little numbers so you can remember how high your monitor was set at if you decide to bring this monitor to a friend's house. Coming from a QD-OLED display and moving to this was kind of a give and take, because I'm coming from the Asus PG32 UCDM. That is a 4K 240 Hz QD-OLED, and on paper, QD-OLED has slightly better color reproduction and has slightly punchier colors depending on your preference with the pixel layout. I actually really like the newer pixel layout of QD-OLED, especially on a 4K display. So I was giving up my 4K resolution and also giving up the 32-inch size, but going down to 27 inches, this is way more suitable for anybody that's into esports or competitive gaming. This is the ideal size that you want to be at, or smaller, actually 24 inches, and this does feature that 24-inch mode, so you can go down in size if you want to and use it in that way. Now, the other thing I gained, so I lost resolution by moving to this display and lost a little bit in size. For some people that is a preference, and some people actually prefer the smaller size. Actually, less resolution also enables you to have higher frame rates depending on what GPU you're using. The thing I did gain with this is a slight matte coating, and when I say slight, this is the most subtle matte coating I've ever seen, and it's very tastefully done. It actually preserves all of the color and sharpness fidelity. I don't think I'm really losing much by using this matte display at all compared to my QD-OLED. Now, I do prefer the QD-OLED because I really do prefer that shiny glossy look, and that's my preference. But I can see how if you were using this display in a setting where you're going to be with bright lights, or you're going to be taking this to a friend's house, that may be an issue. So actually having a matte display is not a bad idea. And of course, the biggest thing you gain by moving to this display is 480 Hertz. That's twice as fast in terms of refresh rate than the QD-OLED behind me. I have to admit, when I used this display, response time actually did improve. I think that's because this has probably the best input lag in history in terms of displays, and another video I watched shows that this had lower input lag than any other display that was ever reviewed before. And when you combine that with 0.03 millisecond response time and 480 Hertz plus a really nice GPU, you're gonna have a competitive edge, I think. I did use this display not only first-person shooters but also story-based games, and I think it works completely fine and works very well. The one thing I will mention about this display, I actually got the most consistent results by just using SDR. Now, HDR works great, it's just a little wonky and it took some time for me to dial that in, and even with the latest firmware on here, I still think there's something still going on where it's clipping highlights because it claims 1300 nits of peak brightness. I wasn't even able to get Windows HDR to calibrate correctly for that. What I ended up doing was just leaving it in SDR and it looked really good, honestly. The best settings for that, I just use standard mode, so I recommend using standard mode because that has the best color out of the box. That way you can bump the brightness all the way to 100%, and then I left contrast at 75, and then sharpness is really just your preference. I think I have it set to 60 here. I was able to get HDR to work and it does look pretty good. I recommend really playing with that and figuring out the best settings for you. I used Cinema HDR, I felt like was the most consistent out of the box, and I'm able to get pretty decent brightness levels out of that. And I really love this swivel design. It's also very light, so you can easily take it with you anywhere you want to go. I would almost say it's kind of a portable display in some capacity if you want to use this and take it to a buddy's house and do some gaming there. For productivity, it's not going to be the best. The pixel density is not as good, obviously, as a 32-inch 4K display, and there's now even 4K 27-inch OLED displays. The QD-OLED variant that I tested from Alienware has phenomenal pixel density, so I definitely noticed that moving from that QD-OLED behind me, the 32-inch 4K, moving to this. The first thing I noticed was the lower pixel density, but for you guys that are really into competitive gaming, that doesn't matter to you. You want faster refresh rates, lower input lag. That's going to give you the edge to win a match. Based on the price of this, now it is on sale right now. It is as low as $800 something. I'll leave links down below for that. So at $800 something, you can get a really nice 32-inch 4K QD OLED, either one from Dell or MSI. In the corner, I'll put links to those videos. I've reviewed both the Dell and the MSI variant of the QD OLED 32-inch 4K, and if you're going to be paying that much money for a display, I think for most of us, I would recommend going that route. You're going to get more consistent HDR performance through those QD OLED monitors. I think this display will get better with another firmware update, but the latest firmware update that I installed on here was released at the end of last year. So we're already into May and there hasn't been another firmware update for this, so that makes me wonder if Sony is just kind of forgetting about this display. But man, do I love this display in terms of design and panel quality and performance. There's so much possible with this display and so much more that can be done if Sony can just fix some of the HDR issues that still exist with this monitor. If Sony ever decides to release a 4K version of this or a 32-inch 4K version of this, man, I would be all over that. Honestly, I prefer the industrial design and the look of this display compared to the QD OLED behind me. It's the PG32 UCDM from Asus. I just think this thing looks so good. Not that everyone swivels their display all the time, but I think the fact that this is so well designed and well made, and I had my doubts when I unboxed this and I saw the base of this, but man, it just works so well. For Mac use, right now I have this actually connected to Mac Mini M4. Out of the box, this thing is perfectly calibrated, so I'm not even going to run a calibration on this because it actually works great. Picture mode, just use standard. Don't use any other picture mode when you're in SDR, especially if you're using it for productivity. The picture mode for standard is already perfectly calibrated. I have my brightness set to 100 and my contrast set to 75. At 500 bucks, man, if that's all you have to spend and you're able to find one of these as an open box, definitely get one. Having to decide between this and that 32-inch QD-OLED, I definitely would rather have the pixel density and the 32 4K display. Like I said, I'm not a high competitive gamer. I do play some of those games, but I'm actually way more into story-based games, and so for me, 240 Hz is perfect. For some of you, 480 Hz would be freaking phenomenal. Hey guys, thanks so much for just sticking around for my quick thoughts on this, the Sony INZONE M10S 27-inch 1440p WOLED at 480 Hz. That's crazy. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Give me a thumbs up if you like today's content, and ring that bell down below to get notified when I drop new content. I'll see all of you guys on my next video.